Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server because Gajin has updated it once again, and guess what? There is a few new vehicles. The first one we're going to be having a look at is the Colorado. This has been sat in the files for the longest time, and now it is finally in the American tree. It's a big old battleship, part of the Colorado class, and it's going to be at rank 6 and battle rating 7.0. You can see it here after the Arizona, and also kind of in the left-hand line. I'm kind of surprised they didn't put it over here to kind of equal out the lines, but instead it's on the left-hand side. Now, the thing is about the battleships and the higher BRs of America is they've kind of always had a fundamental problem compared to other nations. You can see with the Texas, the Arizona, the Tennessee, the Nevada, and even the Alaska, they all have either 12-inch or 14-inch guns, whereas a lot of other nations have higher caliber main armaments. And the Colorado here, it actually gets access to 16-inch guns, so a big step up compared to its competition in the same tech tree. This means that it brings it in line, or at least close to, other nations such as good old Britain, which has a bunch of 15-inch gun vehicles right here, and then also the Rodney, which has the 16-inch guns, and then even Japan, who have all of the big old guns with the 410s, which have turned up too. So generally, it means that they're now more on an equal playing field in terms of firepower with other nations. So it has 4 sets of dual-mounted 16-inch guns. You can see 2 on the front here, and then also 2 on the back. The vehicle itself has a massive amount of secondary weapons. This doesn't actually say which year it was from. Obviously, when it comes to this type of vehicle, I'm sure it was modified as it went along, since this is a World War I battleship, which served all the way through World War I. Well, not all the way through. It was built basically like at the end of it and then commissioned in the 20s, but it did serve through the Second World War. Now, this vehicle has a bunch of 5-inch guns, has a bunch of the different 5-inch guns here. You can see these ones and these ones. It has Mark 7s and Mark 11s, and then it has the Chicago typewriters, and then also some 20mm Oerlikons too. So it is kind of a weird and wonky armament, if I'm honest with you, but the 5-inch guns generally will do you well, and having 18 of them is actually really nice. And you can see the little Chicago typewriters here. It also does have 2 hydroplanes, so if you want to use those, that's kind of nice, and generally you'll have a pretty good time with it. Now, since this is the first vehicle with larger caliber guns, obviously it gets access to some interesting rounds. So you have the high explosive rounds. These nearly have 70 kilos of TNT equivalent, but only pen 97mm at 2500. You can see mostly these will be used as a stock shell. And then you get an APC-BC, which has 25 kilos of TNT equivalent and pens nearly 700mm. So obviously quite a large step up. Then you have the Mark V APC-BC. This one pens 756mm, but also reduces its TNT equivalent to 14.9 kilos, which is still pretty good, but it just seems like a crazy amount in terms of penetration. I don't know any vehicle in game that needs this much penetration, but who knows? Maybe people have still been struggling to kill those Scharnhorsts. Then you have the 5-inch guns. So I'm guessing this affects both sets of 5 inches instead of just one set, but you have a common shell. This has 780 grams of explosive mass, and then 115mm of penetration, and then an APC, which has 770 grams and nearly 200mm of penetration. So the APC is just a direct upgrade over the standard. And as I said, one of the problems with this vehicle is it doesn't have as much AA as other vehicles. But then again, America as a tech tree has a bunch of vehicles that have a ton of AA, so it doesn't really matter too much. When we look at the armor profile, it's fair to say it's not finished. This is a battleship. It shouldn't only have access to 40mm worth of belt armor. So once again, these things take time. I'm sure they'll get fixed. Basically, this thing should have a 400mm belt. So yeah, don't worry. This just is, how it's going to be modeled, and then they're going to actually add the armor later. So this is more showing you the armor layout instead of other stuff. They also have some gaping holes in the armor layout. This is something that also happened with the Warspite, and yeah, it's kind of weird how that keeps going. When you have a look at the turrets, 70mm and then 80mm on the front, there's a little bit of armor on the bridge as well, and also some top armor, some 25mm and 50 in the center to be able to actually cover the engines and stuff. But as I said, these numbers are going to bump up massively once they get everything sorted. It has two tiny funnels, which is really interesting. Usually you have like ships with these just like massive funnels, especially if they are these battleships, like you can see here on the Warspite. Even though it goes all into a single stack, you have just a massive amount, whereas these ones, piddly. So obviously quite efficient in getting rid of the fumes. Then you also have the transmissions. You have a massive ammo rack, like an absolutely huge ammo rack for these 16-inch guns. And obviously on the front side of the machine and the back side of the machine, it's kind of crazy how much is there. And then the fuel tanks, which are around it as well. Now, it does have a search radar, which is pretty cool. And also, it has access to a fire director and a set of them basically on here. You can see the bridge is down here, the radio station is down below, and then also every single gun has a rangefinder on it. So generally this will make it a little bit nicer. The turrets themselves, now understand I'm running with 0 crew here, just because of what crew I have it in. And the turrets have a 1.2 round per minute fire rate, 1.5 rounds aced up though, which is quite nice. And the horizontal guidance speed is incredibly low, but, it's a battleship, so that will only really affect you once you kind of start and then get going. There isn't any camouflages on this thing yet. I'm hoping eventually they will do some camouflages on it, because it would be nice to see the first kind of massive armament vehicle for America get access to some. And you can see the good old 5 inches having a bit of fun, and also going after targets. They have a pretty good fire rate, as you can tell. They're standard 5-inch cannons for America, but you can also see how slow these turrets are as they wander around. So that is something that is a bit unfortunate. Now, the AAs, as I said, I don't really think they're that good, usually because when you have a look at American vehicles, one of the things that you actually end up getting is you end up having a situation... What is that noise? Okay. When it comes to these American vehicles, you usually end up getting a ton of AA on them, like 40s and then 20s and then those 3-inch guns, whereas this one obviously kind of is pretty old school. And since it's also a battleship, it's pretty slow to get going, but you know what it does have? It has a really nice sound on its guns, so... And sometimes that's just more important than anything else when it comes to the vehicle. You can also see they've changed the UI, so you can actually see your hull strength over here, and also your crew skill, which is kind of cool, and the enemy's one. Now remember, since I destroyed 2 of its compartments, this thing, even though it's only at 37, will just sink, and there's nothing it can do about it. It'll slowly sink, of course, but that's basically how it works. So this is the Colorado, a vehicle that at least I've been waiting for since Christmas, because of the fact that it was sat in the files and then it just never got here. Well, it's here now, so hopefully people enjoy it, hopefully people have a good time with it, and hopefully America can finally have a large cannon battleship. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.